Hello, everyone. How are you? Today is July the 1st, a brand new month. It's hard to believe that we're already over halfway through the year. Today, we are going to be talking about coping with, excuse me, we're going to be talking about coping with burnout with our special guest is Miss Glenda Probst from Nanny Transitions. And there she is. Hi, Glenda. Hi, Marilyn. And we are going to be recapping some of the things that we talked about last week in our roundtable discussion. And Linda is going to be giving us some tips, some mistakes to avoid, some things to hold on, let me tip this so that I can see. You can see me above the comments as it scrolls up. Anyway, some of the things that we need to avoid while we are think we're going through burnout. So, if you are just joining us, hello, hello, and please, everyone, hit the share button now. Share in your nanny groups, in your mom's groups, on your pages, so that everyone can come and find out some tips about nanny burnout. Please do that for us, because so many of us go through that and we don't talk about it because people think, oh, well, she should know better, or they feel ashamed because they think nannies are always supposed to be on. You're always supposed to know everything. You're always supposed to be just, on top of everything. And you're the hero. But sometimes it gets to us. And some of us don't talk about it. We hide it. And we end up going into a state of depression. So if you're watching this, please hit the share button. Please share with your groups. Please share with your friends. Please share with your, wherever you share. Please share, because it's not just nannies that get burned out. Some of these rules applied across the board in all jobs, across the board in all situations. Burnout is real. I'm just saying. So let me add Miss Glenda on, so we can get started. Let me scoot this over this way a little bit. There we go. Hello, hello. How are you?
Hello. Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How was your day?
Great. My day was great. I worked on this.
Yay! And not on the other thing?
Well, no, not really.
Okay.
Not really, but that's okay.
We have an inside joke, just in case you all are wondering what we're talking about. This subject was going to be something totally different until after last Monday night, when we started talking, and it ended up going to an hour and a half, and we're like, okay, we gotta go. We just gotta go. And I knew that Glenda was coming on this week and that she would give us some tips on the discussion that we had last week. And let me say this now. Thank you, Atlanta Nannies and Manny's, for accepting me, for welcoming me, for your hospitality. I had so much fun with you all. I learned so much about you all, and I will be back. Guaranteed, I will be back. Hi, Mike. How are you? And let's see. And Patricia and Kate and Anastasia and Vicky and Stacy and everyone else who came in that I cannot see right now because of scrolling. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So last week we talked about burnout and transitioning into another role, or transition completely out of the nanny role. You have to know when and what is right for you. But if you are in the middle of a burnout and a state of confusion, you will make desperate decisions that are not right for you. So, Miss Glenda, how do we avoid that?
Well, we were going to talk about this. Well, we're going to talk about one thing, and we kind of changed gears here. So
Right.
I'm First I want to say is, burnout, somebody said it already on here. Burnout is real. It happens. It happens to the best of nannies. We have very demanding jobs, and things just are constantly going and constantly changing. And it's very easy to just get on overload before we even realize what's happening.
Mhm.
So can you guys just show me how many of you have experienced burnout? Just like send an emoji or wave or, whatever.
Hold on.
Have you
Where's my emoji
experienced
button?
burnout?
I'm trying to see
No?
if I can send one, but I don't know if I can.
Can you just give, can you just, okay, that's great. Or you can just hit one of your little buttons over here and say that you have.
Put a heart
Um,
or a like or a mad face or a happy face, one of those
whatever
wild
you want to
faces.
do. That's
Yeah.
right.
Okay,
And,
Patricia says she has.
okay, how many of you are experiencing burnout right now? Maybe that's why you're here.
I was.
And how many of
Seriously.
you ended up leaving a family because you were burned out? And, sometimes you're burned out and you don't even know it. Because burnout, oh my goodness, 7 kids at once, Mike, I bet you did suffer burnout. Because sometimes everything's okay. And then it's fine until it's not. And then you hit a wall and it's not okay anymore. And a lot of times nannies don't know how to deal with that. So before I tell you exactly how to deal with it, I want to talk to you about how to keep it from happening. And then once we talk about that, then we'll talk about ways to deal with it if you're in it right now. But I think some of these things are going to be helpful to you regardless. I was having a conversation with my former employer the other day, and I said, I've been married to you longer than I've been married to Terry. Terry's my husband. And we both laughed about it, but it's so true, because an employer-employee relationship has to be built on the same things a good marriage is built on.
Right.
But the thing is, in a marriage, we get to take a few months, at least a few months, to get to know somebody, to date them, to get to know their little quirks and what their dreams are, what their expectations are. But when we interview for a nanny job, we only get a few hours tops to kind of find this information out and make these kinds of decisions. So we have to be sure going in that we've talked about the important stuff, because this is a job, but it's also a relationship. So you have to build a good one from the beginning. So there are some things that you can do at the beginning of this relationship that will lay the groundwork to protect you from getting burned out and from getting overwhelmed and from getting taken advantage of. So, my huge thing is work agreements. I don't call them contracts, I call them work agreements. I consider a work agreement a trust document that says to you, we're going to hire you, and this is what we promise you. And by the same token, you're going to give them the same trust. You're going to hire me, and this is what I'm going to do for you. Because you have those things written down, and you have them in black and white. And then when there's a problem, you can always go back to it. But if you don't have something in black and white that you can go back to if there's a problem, what's going to happen? What's going to happen is your employer is going to say, well, I don't remember that.
Yep.
I don't think that's the way I don't remember us talking about that. No, I don't think we agreed to that. And the other thing that's going to happen is you're going to be outnumbered, because there's going to be 2 parents, and they're going to side with each other. So a work agreement is the first thing that you can put in place to protect you, because that's going to give you solid perimeters for your job. Okay. The next thing is that going into a job, you have to this is what we always do. We go into a job, we're excited, we want to make a good impression on the family. And what's the first thing we do? we start putting the family's needs above our own.
Exactly.
And in the beginning, we're trying to make a great impression. But if putting the family, then eventually you're not doing them a favor there, because now you're expected to do that. And especially if you don't have a work agreement, it's just a given. If it's not, if it's not in your work agreement, you can always go back to your work agreement and say, I'm happy to do this, but it's not in our work agreement. So how do we work? How do we fix this? And Vicki, to answer your question about the work agreement, you really need to have it signed before you start with the job, because just having it isn't going to do you any good if you haven't both signed and said that you agree. But that's like a whole other that's a whole other night of conversation. So what I'm really going to try to do is move through these things a little bit fast, but I'm going to try to watch the screen and make sure that if you do have specific questions, I can answer them. Okay. Another thing that happens, so another way that you get burned out really fast, is not having a life beyond your job. Because if you don't have a life beyond your job, it's just easy to fill your work time with, to fill your spare time with work. Because if you don't have a life, if you don't have anything to do anyway, it's just easy to get taken advantage of. Another thing, yes, Vicki, this will be available on a replay. When it's over, it'll be available. You can watch it again. Another thing that happens is not making connections in the industry. Because if you don't have other nannies to talk with, if you don't have other peers, other professionals to talk to that are experienced in this industry, you really don't know. You really don't have a gauge for what's okay and what's not okay, especially if you're a new nanny or you're a younger nanny. So it's really important to have those kinds of connections and people that you can go to that just can, and I think that the Facebook groups take care of a lot of that. But you guys have to remember that, when I came up in this industry, when Becky came up in this industry, when Janet Schilling came up in this industry, we didn't have Facebook. We just had each other, and we didn't really have ways to connect. So you're so fortunate to have this ability to make these connections, but take advantage of them.
Yes.
Okay.
Can I say something
Take
right quick?
advantage.
Can I
Yeah,
say something?
absolutely.
You say, I just, from personal experience, Facebook has been around for a while. I've been a nanny for almost 20 years. This year will be 20 years. And half of that time, the first 7 years, I was working with a family. They were my first nanny family. I was their first nanny. We kind of muddled through it together. I didn't have anybody to talk to. I saw nannies at the park, but it was nothing like the relationship that I even had with some of the people that I have not even met on Facebook. That we didn't have that type of relationship. So it was my first family, and it was my first experience as a nanny. And I was like in a bubble until like 2 or 3 years ago. And until I came out of that bubble and realized, hey, there are nanny groups on Facebook. I didn't have anybody to talk to. And I've been in this for a while. So all of my experiences, I had to learn the hard way. I had to learn by trial and error. And it is difficult. And what you're saying about making connections and connecting to people who have had those experiences and who are used to going through things and realizing, hey, I'm getting burnt out. Hey, I need somebody to talk to. Hey, I'm reaching out. That was me. And I needed this years ago. So that's all I want to say.
I used to have $200 long distance phone bills for my professional connections, So nannies today are very fortunate to have each other at, for an inexpensive venue. The other thing is not having a hobby or involvement in anything beyond the nanny industry. You have to be a well-rounded person to be able to survive this very demanding kind of work. You have to have outlets. You have to have a release. And Susan, you're right. Sometimes it is hard because you do have 100 other people with sharing their opinions. But at least in that mix, you get good advice, you get bad advice, but you kind of muddle through, you kind of sift through it and take the best advice that you can, okay? But another thing that nannies do is they don't have relationships with people outside the industry. And that's a mistake because, it's great to have professional connections, but it's really important to have connections with people that maybe don't even understand what nannies do. It's important to realize that not everybody lives the way that our employers live. It's important to have a balance of the community and of people who live different lifestyles, because those are the things that make you well-rounded. Those are the things that give your life balance, and it gives you the opportunity to have different relationships in your life. So all of those things work together to expand your horizons and make you more secure about who you are and more comfortable in your job. Right. Another thing that nannies do that's a huge mistake is they lull themselves into the false idea that they are indispensable. That because they do what they do, their employers are never going to be able to replace them. Therefore, they have job security. And, that's a mistake, because making yourself indispensable is a really good way to burn yourself out.
That's because you're trying to take care of everything, taking care of all their needs and not taking care of your own. And you fall into the trap of always saying, well, can you do this? Yes. Can you do that? Yes. Can you do? And then you're working 14, 15-hour days because you keep saying yes. And as long as you keep saying yes, they're going to keep asking. And the moment you say no, they're going to look at you like, wait a minute, what do you mean no? You say yes to everything else. Wait. Can't you rearrange that? Can't you do something else? Can't you put that on another day? And they expect you to say yes.
But you always did.
Yes.
You always did that for us.
Of course you did. And now you want to say no.
And you set up an expectation. Yes. So, so many times we do this to ourselves. Even if we're not conscious of doing it, we're really trying to be the best we can be. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in the next thing, but I got a couple more of these to get through, and then we're going to get to the next part, because I don't want to keep everybody on here all night. Another mistake that nannies make is they don't expand their professional horizons. They don't continue their education. They don't go to Nanny Palooza. They don't join INA. They don't take classes online. Today, in this day and age, there are so many opportunities for nannies to take classes online, to better themselves, to better educate themselves. And it's really, really important to keep up with the childcare trends, because childcare trends are constantly changing. For example, my youngest charge now would have been 20 years old. If I had left that job and I had tried to go out and find another job with a newborn, think about all the changes that have happened during that time. About the car seats, about the changes in the car seats. My first nanny job, car seats weren't even a requirement. They were optional. Car seats were optional. I had a car seat, but it was optional. It wasn't a law. So many things change, and the industry changes so fast, and childcare and baby care, all of those things, they change because we're constantly learning more. Janet Schilling, you're right. It's an investment in your professional future. And that's what you have to think about these things as, is an investment in your career. You can't think about it as spending money to get more education. You have to think about investing in yourself. Because when your job ends, you have to be employable. And if you haven't kept up with the trends, you're going to be way behind in the competition. And there's so much competition today for nanny jobs.
Right. And you have to be able to reinvent yourself when that nanny job ends.
They do. You do. You do. The other thing, Mike, I can't put my finger on one specific thing, but I think that there are classes online that are pretty affordable. I know that NAEYC has some incredible things that they offer. And Amsley Institute, I know that they offered a class that went along with National Nanny Training Day.
It was
That if you
$20.
attend, yes, that for $20 you could take a class.
Mm-hmm.
Ask Dr. G, she is fabulous, and she has a ton of things online. She has educational videos, she has her TV appearances. You know, there's all kinds of ways that you could reach out and expand your professional horizons. You just have to make the effort to do it, and ask around, ask your friends what they're doing, and Google it, and ask in your groups, because
And
there are ways.
check with your state. There is a AEYC, which is the Association for Young Education of Young Children in every state, and the membership is less than, it's like $50-$60, and they have classes. Once you become a member, they have classes that you can take, and they're
And
next
they
to
have
nothing.
local classes too, don't they?
Yes, they
Yes.
have local classes. Check
Mm-hmm.
with your state, and because I know I was speaking with someone a couple of days ago, the one for Texas, there's going to be a conference, the AEYC, the state conference is going to be in Frisco, which is right up the street from me, and I plan to be in the house because it's vital to keep learning. Always keep learning. Always keep learning. Oh yeah, and
That's
Texas
true,
A&M
Vicky.
has Texas
Yeah.
A&M has classes online, because I took the SIDS class online, and I took something else, something about the brain, the child's brain, online, and it was absolutely free. So check, and they give you a certificate, and they give you verification. They give you a verification code. So if the parents that you're working for want to check it and see if you actually took that class, they give you a verification code that you can give to them, and they can go online and check it with the university, instead of you just having this piece of paper saying, yeah, where did you print that off from? You can go and verify the classes that you've taken. So that's one route to go to. The library, that's a good idea. The library has classes too.
Yeah, and Vicky mentioned that the local colleges, I mean, community colleges also have classes. So, you know, there are opportunities for education, but you just have to kind of reach out a little bit and do a little bit of looking around and seeing what's available in your area. So we talked about expanding your professional horizons, and the next one is getting caught up in your employer's lifestyle. When you're around a family that lives this extravagant lifestyle, it becomes easier to justify spending money. It becomes easier to put things on a credit card, and it becomes easier to spend beyond your means because you are constantly surrounded by it.
Yes.
And the other thing that happens is you end up saying things like, oh, we're going to go to the Bahamas next year, or we're getting a new car, or we're going to put an addition on the house. And you get sucked into this false sense of who you are and where you are in this family. And that's not a good thing. It's not a healthy thing.
No.
Because it just makes it that much harder when the job ends. And then when you get used to that lifestyle, if you've run up a bunch of credit card debt and then you don't have a job and you don't have a way to pay that bill, then you have no job, no money, no, you know, that's big problem.
Yeah.
So those are all things that you need to be aware of, and things that you need to keep in mind when you are working for a family. And you guys are still making suggestions for educational opportunities, and that's great.
Thank you. I
Great. Keep them
appreciate that.
coming. Okay. And you know, the last thing is, and we kind of started it out this way, but we're going to end it this way, is, you know, were you ever a doormat? Because I was a doormat.
Yes,
I,
yes,
and it
yes.
was, and it's nobody's fault but your own.
Yes, yes, yes.
It's nobody's fault but your own, because of what I said before. You're so eager to do a good job. You're so eager to make a family fall in love with you. But let me tell you something. They hired you. They did this incredible thing whenever they gave you this job. They entrusted you with their most precious possession, their child. And if that doesn't show how much they value and trust you, I don't know what does. And all you really have to do is do your job and do it well and be who you are, and it will be enough, because you are enough. But here's the thing. You have to commit to these before you accept a job. That's a good professional goal, is to commit. And after this is over, I will share a link to an article that I wrote for eNanny Source a number of years ago, and it's called Mistakes that Nannies Make to Drive Them Out of the Profession. So I will share that link. But all of these things lead to burnout. And sometimes we can still do all of these things, but we still end up suffering from burnout. And I'm sure that a lot of you are here tonight because you've either been burned out, or you are burned out, or you're starting to get burned out, and you want advice and you want support. And so I'm going to try to give you a little bit of that too. Okay. The first thing I want to talk about is boundaries.
Oh, so important. So important.
We have to set boundaries, personal boundaries. We all need boundaries and we all deserve boundaries. Now, my boundaries are different than your boundaries. My boundaries, you get to decide what your boundaries are. You get to decide what's okay, and you get to decide what's not okay. Because boundaries are personal decisions about what you will or you won't allow in your life, in your heart, and in your soul. So you need to know that. You need to determine what your boundaries are. What's your question, Vicki? Go ahead and type it and I will keep talking. Sometimes we have to let other people know when they've crossed a boundary. Because if we don't let them know they've crossed a boundary, maybe they don't know. Everybody's boundaries are different, okay? But when you set your boundaries, that is how you show love for yourself. That's how you determine who you are and what you believe and what's important to you. And again, different for everybody. So Vicki, if your passion is creativity and doing things for your nanny kids and you're okay with that, that's fine. That is absolutely okay. I did it with my nanny kids all the time. And you know, that's the thing, is if it makes you happy, that's okay. But for some people, it wouldn't be okay. I'll give you an example. Some nannies will not allow their employers to call them after work. If they need them, they can text them, but they can't just text them and say, you know, we need laundry detergent. Can you pick it up tomorrow? You know, a lot of nannies have that boundary that my time is my time, and I don't take phone calls from work on my own time. And you know what? If that's okay with them, if that's what they need, then that's okay. But you have to make your own boundaries. And if you don't have boundaries, then people don't know when they're crossing their boundaries. So
And then
you
you
need
get upset
to,
and mad, and that causes more burnout because you don't want to be there because they crossed the line, but you didn't set the line, and they don't know that they crossed the line, and that's
that's
upsetting you
right.
more because they keep crossing the line, and then you're ready to blow up.
That's right. Now, one of the things is you can talk about that in your interview process and say, I want to talk about calling me off hours. I understand there are going to be times whenever you need to do that, but I really like my time off to be away from work. If you need to email me or text me or whatever, but I want you to know my evenings are my evenings. If that's important to you, you need to draw that boundary. You need to draw that line for yourself. Because we need to stand up for ourselves in a positive, respectful way and stand in our own power. And let me tell you something. When you stand in your own power in a reasonable and respectful way, you're not a doormat. You don't get treated like a doormat. You get treated as a professional. You get treated with respect. And that's what you should expect. That is exactly what you should expect. Because the reality is that you cannot be taken advantage of if you don't allow it to happen.
Janet just
You have to draw the lines and you have to communicate what the lines are.
Yeah. Janice just made a point about live-in nannies, and I used to have a live-in situation, and it is
Mm-hmm.
very hard to draw boundaries when you live in because the parents may understand, but kids don't understand. And sometimes parents think just because you're being nice to the child and letting them stay, that it's okay. But
Mm-hmm.
in the back of your mind, you're thinking, okay, so if I'm mean to this child and tell them to get out, it's not my time, or go talk to your mama or daddy and move on, then it reflects badly on you because you didn't take the time to say hello to my child, and you're responsible for my child, and what was wrong with you that you didn't open the door and say hello and just redirect them. Well, parents should talk to their children and let them know this is their time, and um they need some alone time. You should not have to leave the house in order to have some time alone. I know the kids love you. I've been there, I've done that, and they love you. But I had parents who said, "No, she's in there and she's having a that it was always she's napping." And they knew that nap time at 3 years old, they knew nap time means it's quiet in the house. So you have to be quiet. Well, she's napping, even though I had music playing. She's napping. So um the 3 year old always knew that I was napping, and that was their way of respecting my time because I was not on duty. But you have to talk to the parent and have a parent that's on board with that to respect those boundaries.
And that is something that if you haven't had that conversation when you're creating your work agreement, you have to have that conversation when it happens. Because if it's happening every single night and you're letting it go on and it's been going on for 6 months, then it's kind of hard to go back after 6 months and say, I don't want to do this, or can we talk about this? Because by then the parent has just assumed that it is okay with you. But you have to say the words. And Stacy, jumping back up to your question, it, you know, when your boss is giving you split shifts like that, I really think that you guys need to sit down and talk about it. And that's going to be the next thing that I'm going to talk about after I talk about a little bit more about boundaries. But these are hard conversations. But if you don't bring them up, they're not going to get resolved. And that's the other thing that happens. Before I go into this next part, I want to say that Tracy Chips, if you're not friends with Tracy Chips, she posted a beautiful post on her Facebook page the other day, and she included an article about boundaries. And the really nice thing about this article is it helps you to know how to figure out what your boundaries are and to know how to honor your boundaries. Because if you don't honor your boundaries, nobody else is going to honor them either.
This is true.
So I'm going to try right now. And let me see if I can do this. There. That's the link. Did I do it? Did it come through?
Oh, well, I did the wrong thing. Okay, hold on.
Okay.
See, I get.
Okay, well, if it doesn't come through, I'll come back and post it later. But it's a
takes
really
little
great
time
article.
for it to come up.
Okay, that's fine.
So once you type it in, it's like a delayed reaction.
Okay. Okay.
So if it doesn't come up, we'll get it later.
The topic of boundaries leads me to my next topic of conversation, and that is communication. Because here's the thing, guys, you have to have communication with your employers. In Nanny Transitions, if you've heard me talk, you know that one of the top signs, thank you, Kate. Kate says there's an excellent book titled Boundaries by Dr. John Townsend. So there's another one. In Nanny Transitions, one of the things I talk about is one of the top signs that your job is ending is lack of communication. Because if you don't have communication in a relationship, you don't have anything. Every good relationship is built. The strongest part of a good relationship is communication. And communication requires time, energy, effort, planning, and execution. So a lot of times when nannies are on a job and things aren't going well, or things happen that they don't like. Stacy, I'm going to use you for an example. Your boss starts changing your schedule around. She doesn't sit down and talk with you about it. She just says, this is what we're doing. But if we don't say the words, they can't read our mind.
That's right.
And I know that it is sometimes very intimidating and very hard to have a conversation with your employers. But I'll tell you something, your employer is a person just like you. I don't care who you work for. I don't care how much money they make. I don't care how educated they are. I don't care how important their job is. They are a person just like you. They put their pants on one leg at a time. And they are no better than you are.
That's true.
They're just not any better than you are. And you deserve this communication. And I lost my page. I'm sorry. Give me 1 second here because I lost my notes. So what happens then if you're having a problem, and again, Stacy, I'm going to go back to you. You have to go back to your employer and you have to say, we need to have a talk. We need to have a meeting. And then they're going to say, well, my employers would always say to me was, oh my gosh, are you going to quit? So, you don't have to give them a lot of information about what you're going to do, or you can give them a lot of information about what you're going to do. It's up to you, whatever you're comfortable with. But, that you just need to go to them and talk to them, because you deserve respect and you deserve to be treated as a valued employee. You have to take the initiative to facilitate communication, because if everything's going fine and the kids are getting picked up and the kids are happy and the household's running well and there's food in the refrigerator and, all the things are done, you might be miserable, but if you don't tell your employer that you're struggling, They don't know because they can't read your mind.
True.
You have to say the words. You're right, Vicki. You have to ask for a meeting. So I promise you that 99% of the time it's going to fall on you. Your employer is not going to come to you and say, "Are you happy? Should we have a meeting?" Because if you're not squeaking, they're not going to oil that wheel, you
I
know?
know, right?
So
No.
you have to stand up for yourself. And let me tell you something. The first time you do it, it's hard. The second time it gets easier. And yes, preferably without the children present.
Yes.
Because I really like to do meetings on neutral territory, like meet at a coffee shop or a restaurant or something like that. Don't go to their office because that's their turf. But neutral territory is a great way to have a meeting. But if you can't do that, then take what you can get, okay?
Right.
Take a deep breath and ask for the meeting. Once the meeting's on the calendar, you have a job to do. You have to decide on an agenda. You have to define, and these are things that you have to do on your own. Sit down and think about what the problem is and what you would like the outcome of this meeting to be. What's your perfect solution? What solution would be good? And what solution would be acceptable? And you have to realize that you may not come away from this meeting with everything that you want, and that you might have to make some compromises. But you need to take notes. You need to write down points that you want to make, because in case you get nervous, you're going to forget them. And don't present a problem without presenting a solution.
Exactly.
Because that was some advice that someone gave me one time. And it's such a good piece of advice to just keep in your back pocket. Because when you come to somebody and you say, "Oh, I got a problem," and blah, 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 then, let me give you an example. You're working late every night. You get off work, 15 to 30 minutes late every night. The mom's working on a big project. You don't want to make a big stink about it. You know it's a temporary situation. But you go to her and say, "What I would really like is if, you talk about the situation, I realize that you've got this big project going on at work. I'm supposed to be off at 6:30. I'm really not getting off until 7 these days. I would like to have at least one night a week that I could be off early. So do you think that we could find a babysitter that would come on and agree on a night, Wednesday afternoon, and they'll come 3 hours early before I get off. If I get off at 6:30, they'll come at 3 or 3:30. And they can be with the children the rest of the evening and get them dinner. If you need to stay and work late that night, that's fine. But I get a break. I have a night that I know that I can go out and do something fun, or I can see with my friends. I can, but offer a solution. Because when you present a problem and you don't offer a solution, you have less chance of getting the problem solved."
This is true. Come to the table with a solution.
Yes.
Don't be part of the problem.
And be willing to make the compromise. Be willing, we don't always get everything that we want, but our employers don't always get everything that they want either. And this relationship is a give and take relationship. This relationship, like any relationship, should be 100, not 250 and 0,
Yes.
Both sides have to make this relationship work. You are part of a parenting team, and that's a thing that a lot of us forget. We're not supposed to solve all this stuff on our own. We are a team. We are supposed to be working with the parents to solve these problems. So we need to be a team. And so, if you're in the job now, and you've been in this job and you've been having these problems, it's hard. It's hard to change midstream. But you're going to have to do a little self-work. You're going to have to do a little soul work. And you're going to have to figure out a way to get up your courage to go to your employer and have the conversation. And as I say in Nanny Transitions, sometimes you have that conversation, you have to understand. You may not like the way that conversation comes out. You may not like the way that meeting comes out, but you have to be an advocate for yourself, and you have to be an advocate for what you need. Because if you're not going to advocate for what you need, and you're not going to advocate for yourself, and you're not going to say the words, you are going to be a doormat. And you're going to burn out, and you're going to get done. And not only are you just going to be done with that job, but you're probably going to just be done. Because one of the things that I saw a lot when I first, back in 1992, when we started the National Association of Nannies, and this was an organization run by nannies for nannies, and we had an annual conference every year. And the thing that we saw at the conferences every year were nannies that came in and they were just being taken advantage of by their employers, and they didn't know how to stand up for themselves. They didn't know what their rights were. They didn't know how to really stand in their own power. They didn't know anything. They didn't know what was okay or what wasn't okay. And the thing now is that we're better and we're smarter and we have better resources and we have better information, and we have to advocate for ourselves. Today, we have better tools to keep from getting burned out. But what I used to see nannies who would have a job, be miserable, be taken advantage of, leave the job, get another job, be miserable, be taken advantage of, time after time after time, the same song, a different verse, because you have to learn to stand up for yourself. You have to learn what's okay and what's not okay. Exactly, Toya. A lot of nannies don't stand up for themselves. You have to learn how to do this for yourself if you want to stay in this industry. If you want to stay in this profession, you have to find your voice. And you're right, Katie, when you know better, you do better. Yeah. And that is another thing that's an advantage to continuing education. In however way you get it, continuing to expand your professional horizons is what's going to keep you in this industry. Because if you just keep jumping out of one frying pan into a different frying pan, eventually you're going to fizzle out and be done. You
just
have
fried.
to figure, yes, pride. That's
just
right.
Fried.
To figure out how to protect yourself.
When you said about standing up for yourself, having those meetings with parents, it crossed my mind that when you have those meetings with parents and you talk to them and you come to them with a solution, and sometimes it requires the parent talking to their boss because they're getting off so late and they're wearing you out, and which is wearing the parent out. And then you have this, the parent is worn out and they are not in the mood to have, I don't have time to have a conversation with you. I just need you to do what I need you to do. You've been doing it before, so why you want to change now? And they are so on the defensive because of what's going on their job. And we try to be understanding, and we try to be there to be their backup, but we can't save the world. And you can't save that parent if you can't save yourself. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you just have to take a step back, tell the parent, look, this is the situation, this is how I'm feeling, and when you don't come home on time, I miss out on this, and this, and these things are important to me. Having this job with your family is important to me, but also if I get burned out and I'm working so many hours and I get sick, I can't come and do all these things for your family. So I need to stick with an original schedule. I need to find some time for you to come home or possibly work from home, or like you said, bring in a babysitter, but I need some time for me. I just recently learned how to say no. And it hurts my heart to tell a parent no, because uh, I can't. I'm like, okay, so I really had wanted to do this on that night, and I really did want to go do that on that night, and I have friends that are going to do this. How do I tell them no? And I want to keep my job, and we are afraid of what our employers are going to say. But if you are afraid of what they're going to say, then it's kind of hard to if they'll put you in a position where you can't talk to them, and you don't feel comfortable. And I know none of us feel comfortable with confrontation, because I'm not a confrontational person, and I'm a giver, and most nannies are givers, but you have to give to yourself first. It's called self-care. You have to give to yourself first, and one of those things of giving to yourself is having those tough conversations. And you have to get over your passive aggressive personality, because I did too. I promise you, I'm the first one that will admit that was me, and sometimes still is me. I go and do things that I know I shouldn't be doing, but because I love those kids and they're such a sweet person, and I'm just trying to help out, and then I get and I'm like, oh God, my back is killing me. Why did I try? The next time I agree to do something, I didn't tell my husband. I told him the other night. The next time I agree to do something stupid like this, tell me, remind me of this day. Remind me of what I said this day, so I can click and think, don't do that. Don't go there. That's beyond your abilities. You're getting old. You can't do everything anymore. So you have to think about it. And I know, yes, I know that's funny, but it's the truth. I can't do everything that I used to do. And you shouldn't have to feel like you can't say no to your employer.
You
But
have
like
to fill up you have to fill up your own pot before you can
yes,
pour out from it, number one.
yeah,
But the other thing that I thought about as you were talking is the other thing that we do as nannies when we go into these conversations is we go in on the defensive. And we don't have to go in on the defensive because we have a right to feel the way we feel, okay? We have a right to that. We have a right to our own life. We have a right to be happy. And one of the things that we can do is not to place blame, not to say, you always this, you always that, you did this, you did that. You don't do that, because that isn't a positive solution-oriented conversation. You
right,
want to have a solution-oriented conversation. So you
right,
don't want to go into this conversation angry, and you don't want to go into this conversation making your employer feel like it's her fault because she works so much, okay?
right.
And I think that if you go into these conversations from a point of love, really, I mean, we all care about our employers. We all know how hard they work and if you have a good relationship with your employer, you really want to go into it with a spirit of solutions and caring and compassion, and not an angry, mad, frustrated, burned
This is
out.
true.
And that's why you have to do it before you get
Before.
to that point. Don't let
Exactly.
it build up or you will explode. And
That's what I was
that's
saying.
not productive. So, fill yourself up. Take care of yourself. Don't apologize for taking care of yourself. Fill up
Mhm.
your pot so that you can pour it out. And the other thing is, maybe your employer needs to have this conversation because maybe they need to have that conversation with their employer.
Right.
You know?
And the passive aggressive gets you to the point where you go into that conversation angry, and you go into that
Mm-hmm.
conversation accusatory of, you should have done this, and it makes me feel, and we teach the kids how to use your words. But we have to learn too, the words that you use and the attitudes behind the words that you use how it's not, sometimes it's not what you say, it's how you word it and how you say it and the attitude behind what you say. You can say, I don't like you, or I don't like that, and in a way, I really don't prefer that. Or you can say, I don't like that. It's two different attitudes behind that. And which one do you think is going to go over well with your employer? And you're trying to get a point across, and you're trying to, use some honey and not all that vinegar. Because you draw more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. It comes across so much sweeter, and it tastes so much better, even though you're saying no, which is not a bad word. No is not a bad word, but it comes across so much better when you're using honey than it does when you're using that sour vinegar. Just saying. I'm looking at the comments.
Simple conversation.
I don't like to have to clean up the mess the family makes when I am not there. Specifically, dirty dishes, the whole family use. How can I approach this? Good question. Is that part of burnout?
That goes back to a work agreement. That goes back to a work agreement. If you have a work agreement, you can go back and see what your work agreement says about that. Because if you have a work agreement and it's in black and white, then you can say, I have noticed that a lot of times whenever I come into work, there are a lot of dishes in the sink. And I don't mind doing that occasionally, but my work agreement says blah, 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 blah. Because then then that gives you a point of reference. If you don't have a work agreement and you don't have a point of reference, you can still say that, you can still talk about it, but you might just say, do you have a solution? Do you have an idea of how we could fix this? Or, that's a hard one, because sometimes that requires everybody in the family cooperating. So maybe what you have to say to your employer in that conversation is, can we have a family meeting and talk about being responsible for your own dishes and putting your own dishes in the dishwasher?
But she says her contract says child-related chores only.
Okay, well, then you can talk about it. You can say that. And that's the beauty of having something in black and white. That's, because then you have a reference point to start. Okay, see, my screen wasn't scrolling past fast enough. So, okay. But I said,
my dad boss starts out with, what did I do wrong again, no matter how I come to him.
Well, and
what did I do wrong again?
That kind of sounds like my husband.
Okay, what did I do wrong this time?
But one way you can deal with that is to start the conversation on a positive note. Right. I wanted to talk to you. I really like my job, or something funny that the kids said that day. Just something positive to start the conversation off on a positive note, instead of going right into it with a negative note.
Yes.
Yes. You could try to approach it that way, Sarah.
Okay. Oh, and those of you who just joined us or just came in, please hit the share button and share in your groups, and share on your Facebook pages, on your business pages, wherever it may be. Please hit the share button, because these are some good ideas, not just for nannies, but across the board for everyone. It's that sandwich method. Start with the positives. Middle is the
nasty
hard
sandwich.
Conversation. End with the positives.
That's right.
That's right, Kate. That's right. That's
right. And a great thing to use in an in a meeting like that. But especially when it's going to be awkward, because you would want somebody to say positive things to you along with negative things, right?
Right.
I hate sandwiches. Who said that?
The sandwich
Um,
method. That's what they teach us when I taught at the preschool. That's how they taught us to have the conference with the parents. You start out with something positive that the children is doing, and then you add the little negatives, and then you show them the positive. But look what he did. Didn't he do this right? Didn't he do that? Wasn't that good? So you got it in there. You made them feel good, and you hit them with that 1-2 punch, and then you kind of rub some alcohol on it so it wouldn't hurt so bad. So that's the way I saw it.
yeah. Yeah. And again, solution oriented. Go into this with a solution oriented attitude.
Okay. Sarah is saying, my relationship with the family is ending soon, but I want to fix it for the next job.
Oh, for your next job.
Oh, I can say
Okay.
something good.
Sarah, what do you want to fix?
She said, I want to say
Can
something
you
good.
tell
And then she says, I hate sandwiches. I'm like,
her? Well,
okay, no sandwiches
yeah,
here.
Sarah, what do you want to fix the fact that you get taken advantage of on your jobs?
And when she says the relationship is ending with my family is ending soon, are you resigning from your job? Are they moving away? Is
Her
it
job is ending.
okay?
Okay. Well, I think that coming to people, Anita, that's a great way to do it, to go over your calendars and your plans, because that is truly, you do have to have ongoing communication with your employers.
Yes.
And Sarah, I think that you just have to do a little creative thinking. You have to think of what might work. You have to, I would ask other people how they do it, what works for them. Because every family is different, and but part of it, I think, is just inside of you. It's an attitude. It's not being on the defensive to start with.
Mm-hmm.
It's owning your feelings. It's learning how to stand in your own power. It's finding your voice. It's being confident in what your job is and how you do it. And all of those things work together to project an image of confidence and calm. And when you can go into a conversation like that, I think that that's a good foundation to start on.
Right. Kate is
So,
Kate has a shared Google Calendar and Google Docs with her employers. Oh, tech savvy. Uh, I know how to use them. Technically, I know how to use them, but to utilize them the way they're supposed to be, I don't. If somebody sends me something, I can open up and I can read it. But me being able to go in there and put stuff where it belongs and how to, I that's not me. And I know they say you can't teach old dog new tricks, but I'm learning. I'm learning new technology every day, and I'm finding people that you just do this and do that. I'm like, hold on, I need a tutorial in that, and I may have to come back to you later to figure out when I get stuck. So don't be afraid to learn new things and new methods of communication, new methods of if your boss is tech savvy and they are always on Google Docs or they are on a Google Calendar or you have a shared calendar or you have in my job, the Baby Connect app. I put notes in there on the baby's, the baby ate and he spit up this much or whatever. I put notes in there so that I won't forget to tell the parents, or if anything happens, it's in the notes. It's on the app, and they may not read it until the next day, and they'll come and ask me what's going on. But get tech savvy. find a way of communication that both of you share, and it makes it a whole lot easier. If you have a doctor's appointment, if you have something that is going on and it's on a Friday night and you are off, and they usually ask you to babysit some Friday nights and stay late, put it on that calendar that you are, so whatever concert it is. Trejanda, from a Mommy's Day Off last week, she said she puts in her calendar and she puts on there nothing. So she knows nothing means this is my time and I am doing absolutely nothing, and nothing can mean vegging out on the couch watching TV. It could be going to the concert. It could be whatever she wants to do, because that nothing on her calendar means this is my time. This is self-care time. So if it means putting nothing on your calendar, and nothing meaning this is my time, put self-care on the calendar, whatever it's going to take for you to take some time to yourself and let your boss know that this is my time, and don't trample on it. Don't ask me for nothing. Don't want nothing. Don't even try it. That's your time.
I have I have two things to add to that.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
One is, if you don't know how to use those kinds of those apps, if you're technically challenged, YouTube, you can find out how to do anything on YouTube. So, go on YouTube and it will walk you through it. So that's one thing. The other thing is, I'm going to tell you that sometimes you have to develop little tricks in your mind and in the way you deal with things in order to make things okay for you. When I used to work a lot of hours on my first job, and well, I worked a lot of hours on my second job too, but I used to work a lot of hours, and my employers did a lot of special things, special events, and they did a lot of big parties, and they were very busy people. And one of the things that I used to do was, if there was an event coming up and I knew that it was on the calendar, and I could go, you know what, I know they're going to need me to work that weekend. But, a lot of times whenever employers need you to work, they don't always look at their calendar 3 months ahead of time and say, oh, I'm going to have to ask her to do that. And then you get 2 weeks out and they look at the calendar and they're like, oh my gosh, I forgot to ask you to work. And then at that point, you probably have already made plans. What I used to do was, if I knew that event was coming up, I put it on my calendar and I went to my employer and I said, I know that you're going to be doing this on this weekend. I wanted to let you know that I'd be willing to work. Because then, number one, made me look like a good nanny. And number two, it was my decision and my choice to do it. And I didn't feel put upon by them to do the extra, because I made the decision to do it instead. And they appreciated me being on top of it and have to stress over that. So that's another thing.
Yeah.
It made a big difference. It really made a big difference in how I felt about working those extra hours, because exactly, Kate, you pay attention. You pay attention. And those are the kinds of things that you can do that don't cost you anything, that don't hurt you, but they just make you better at your job. They just make you more efficient, and they make your employer appreciate you a little bit more in most cases. So, I think that and one other point I want to make, because I know we're getting long here, but one other point I want to make is, that as nannies, a lot of times we look at our employers as, what can they do for me? What are they going to give me? When am I going to get this? When am I going to get that? Are they going to let me do this? Are they going to let me do that? But again, we're a team. And sometimes we have to give. Sometimes we have to give back to them the same way that they give back to us. It doesn't mean financially, it just sometimes we do that with our time. Sometimes we do that in other ways. But we need to find ways to let our employers know that we appreciate them the same way that we expect them to let us know they appreciate us. Because it does go both ways. This is a relationship. We have to keep it going. Communication is what fuels a relationship. If you
Say it
don't have
again.
communication, you're not going anywhere.
This is true. This is true. That's
So
why I said,
the
say it again. Communication, communication, communication. It's the key to all
communication is the
relationships.
fuel. That's right. It moves us forward. If we are not communicating, we are stagnant. And if we are stagnant, we are not growing. And if we are not growing, our job is going to end. So quit waiting around for somebody else to fix it for you, because you have to find ways to fix it. You have to present solutions. You have to do the communicating. Maybe that doesn't sound fair, but it doesn't really matter who does the communicating. It matters that the communicating gets done.
Right, right. And
So,
when you communicate and advocate for yourself, a lot of
yes, and
those
take some
hurt feelings,
responsibility.
right,
Take some responsibility for yourself. If you want your job to go well and you want it to succeed and you don't want to get burned out, you have to take some responsibility for yourself.
true. And I have learned that over the past year, being an NCS, it has changed my thought process, because a lot of times it's your mindset. A lot of your job is your mindset. And if you get caught up in all that passive aggressive stuff, and you don't think to look ahead, you don't think to, well, they should know their calendar, they should know this, they should know that, or they should know better than to do this. Well, you should know that as a nanny, you are expected, certain things are expected of you, to look ahead, to be there for that family. And if you're looking ahead, you can see, like Emily mentioned, the days when the kids are going to be out of school. Do they have somebody for the days out of school? Maybe they didn't realize that the kids had to take cookies to school because you picked them up from school. They didn't realize that a project was due, or whatever the case may be. Remind parents, this is what's going on. Don't be so busy trying to get out of the door. If you communicate to them the little bitty things about the kids, and that way you can discuss, do you need my help with them doing this, or are you going to do it for them, instead of the last minute, can you help little Johnny with his project, I forgot to do it, and then you're mad because you knew the project was coming. And I had even gotten to the point one time, I knew a science project was coming. I knew they were waiting till the last minute. I said, I'm going to end up having to do this project. I know I am. And it made me upset because I sat back and I waited. I was waiting on them. They're busy living their lives and doing their jobs and everything. I'm the one picking up the kids from school. I'm the one communicating with the teachers on a daily basis. The parents had no, I mean, they probably saw it, but they didn't see. Sometimes you see things, but you don't see them. You just kind of glance at it and it's like, okay, I'll remember that. And they don't remember. And I was mad at myself. I was mad because they didn't remember the child's project was due. I was mad because they asked me to do it. And I'm like, I wrote it down for you. I was on the school calendar. It's hanging on the refrigerator. It was like all of these things in my mind because I was being passive aggressive. And you have to
Mhm.
get in a mindset of being forward thinking instead of passive aggressive. And when you become forward thinking and remind them in plenty of time that this is due and this is going to happen, they'll have enough time or set time for this project that is becoming due, instead of 2 3 days beforehand they ask you to do it. So change your mindset, because a lot of times that has to do with what we will do and what we won't do.
Well, and you know, we have to remember we're all on the same team.
Yes.
It's not us against them. It's
Yes.
all of us working together.
Yes.
And when your employer makes you mad, or when your employer forgets something, or your employer doesn't do what you think that they're supposed to do, it isn't because they don't care about you, and it isn't because they purpose. It happens.
Right.
My link for the boundaries article just came through.
I
I just figured out how to do that.
It just came up. I was like, huh? What is this?
Okay.
I was reading it and I was thinking,
So better
okay,
late
so
than
what
never.
is she? Well, it came up. At least it came up, and I'm wondering if
It came up.
I'm wondering if it's because we're talking that it took so long to get through the system. I don't know.
No, it was because I was pushing the wrong button.
Oh, okay.
I can be technically challenged.
Okay.
That's okay.
Okay.
Okay. So
Okay. Go ahead.
these ladies have made some really great points about organization, and Anita talked about how, you know, because she is a live-in and she gets up early in the morning and takes time for herself so that she has some time to herself, you know, before her day begins. And that's a really great way to take care of yourself. And the technology and the what Kate said about, you know, working to have a better relationship with your employers. There's a lot of stuff that you can do. And really, you know, it takes some effort on your part, but the payoff is so worth it. The payoff is so worth it.
Yes, it is.
We
Daphne
have
says,
to invest in ourselves.
right.
We
Daphne
have
says
to.
she realized that a few years ago that her mom boss is not a good communicator. So she does most of the communication and it makes for less stressful situation. And that's a wonderful, wonderful assessment, Daphne. If you realize that you wanted to go your way, then you have to take charge and get it done, and to talk about it and to say something
And
about it.
the thing is, Kate, that you realized that and you took responsibility for fixing the problem. You didn't go, well, my boss never talks to me. My boss is a terrible communicator, so I'm just not going to talk to her either.
Right.
Because that's what happens. People just get mad, but you figured it out and you got it resolved. And that is going to benefit you so much in the future. That attitude is going to carry you far.
Right. Right. Very good. Very
But
good.
remember, ladies, and gentlemen, if you're still on here, we should be going into these hard conversations with an attitude of love and an attitude of peace and calm and a solution oriented. We want a solution. We don't want to fight. We just want to fix things. It isn't about winning. It's about solutions. And it's about being strong. It's about having boundaries. It's about finding your voice and standing in your own power and not apologizing for who you are or what you need.
Amen.
So,
Amen. I totally agree. So, any other closing remarks
from me,
from you?
I think those were my closing remarks. Does anybody else have anything they want to say or ask or?
Okay. While we're waiting on
Great.
the comments to come through, Daphne says,
I
be
like
a
that,
fixer,
Daphne.
not a fighter. I
That's a
like
great
that.
one.
I like that,
Yeah,
Daphne. Be a fixer, not a
I like
fighter.
that too.
That's my motto. Okay, see, you're gonna make me do hashtag fixer, not fighter. You're gonna make me do that.
That's a
I
good
like
one.
that. That's a
Yeah.
good one. And that's a good motto for a lot of us to have. Be a fixer, not a fighter. Uh, Patricia says, thank you both for all the wisdom bestowed. Good reminders.
You're
Yes, yes,
welcome.
yes. Thank you, Miss Glenda, for joining us. And Glenda will be back with us in a couple of 2 or 3 months because we're gonna have a checkup, a self-care checkup, and it'll be different topics about self-care. But we're going to have self-care checkups every 2 to 3 months so that we can remember to take care of ourselves, to stand up for ourselves, to be our own advocate, to um, it's important to know that you are important and that your job does not define you. You need to be um, be able to take care of yourself, because if you don't take care of yourself, guess what? You won't be around to take care of anybody else.
Mhm.
Now,
Kate, go ahead and put your book recommendations in the comments, and that way, as people come on and watch the replay, they'll be able to see them.
yes, if you have a link to them, Kate, uh, please add the link so it'll be easier for them to just hit the link and go directly to them.
Mhm.
It makes it so much. I love rewatching live videos, and it has like links, and I'm just like, oh, I needed that. Let me share that. It makes it a whole lot easier than trying to look up. Is this the right thing? Is this the right book? Is
Mhm.
this what they were talking about? It makes it so much easier when there's a link there, and it I'll post them after the stream. Thank you, Kate. Thank you so much, because I'm looking at these. I'm like, I need to get these, and I'm hoping that some of them are on audiobook so I can listen in the car as I ride. That's what I do. I listen to podcasts. I listen to uh, inspirational books as I'm riding, going to work, and it does so much for me, and it lifts my spirits, and it gives me a more positive attitude when I get to work, instead of listening to woe is me stuff. I hate listening to the news first thing in the morning because it just puts a damper on my day, because all the bad stuff that's going on in the world, I reflect it on the children that I work with, and I don't like doing that. I don't like feeling bad going into work and then trying to
Mhm.
come up out of that. I like being on top
Mhm.
and save that bad stuff when I get back home. So, um,
Can I say
thank
one more thing? I,
sure.
I just I just want to say that I really felt like this group tonight had some really great things to say, and that they really shared some great wisdom. But I also want to say it's such a privilege for me to be able to come here and do this. And Angela, I really appreciate that you invite me back. You
I
do
thank
great
you, thank
things
you, thank
here.
you. I learn nuggets every time. I tell you, I learn nuggets every time you come on, and it's always something different. And I'm always sitting here writing down, and then you give me inspiration to write blogs and things, and I'm like, yes, I remember. Wait a minute, hold on, let me write that down, because if I don't write it down, I forget. But these nuggets, coming back and watching the videos, because I always come back and watch the videos, and so I can improve. So I'm like, oh, you need to stop doing that. You do that too much. So I like coming back and listening and picking up the nuggets and writing them down, because it's hard to write down and talk and go like this all the time when I need to focus here. I can come back and watch the replay. And just so you all know, uh, the I download the videos and I post them on my YouTube channel. Now, it does not have all the comments that everybody said on there, but I do post the video part on the YouTube channel, because when you download it, it does not have the comments scrolling up the screen. It only takes the video part. So it might sound crazy when I'm saying, hi, everybody heard, and you're like, who is she talking to? It's because I downloaded the video and I posted it on YouTube, because I've gotten a
Oh,
lot of
awesome. I didn't know
feedback.
that.
I've gotten a lot of feedback from the YouTube channel about topics that we talk about, and a lot of them come from you, Glenda. for 3 or 4 times that you've been on here, a lot of them come from you, from the self-help stuff. And it's not just nannies that watch it, as parents. And when I go to the meetups, like the meetup I went to yesterday, a young lady told me, she said, I watch your live videos. I'm like, you do? And I didn't even know who she was. I promise you, I didn't know who she was. It was like my first, she knew me, but I didn't know her. And I'm like, I felt so embarrassed. And I was like, oh, thank you. But it takes a lot to do this, and to find someone like you, Glenda, that gives us the points, and you talk to us, you give us straight talk, you don't beat around the bush, you don't sugarcoat it, you make a positive delivery, and you make us open our eyes to the realities of what we live in and what we're going through. Because you have been there, because you are a trailblazer and you have been there, you're able to tell us, okay, don't make that mistake. Don't go down that road. Don't do this. Go this way. Go that way. Please listen. I'm just asking the listening and watching audience, please listen, because these little tips that she has told you, I've used some of them the last couple of years since I've been talking to Miss Glenda, and I'm telling you, they work. If you put them in action, they work. I promise you they will.
Thank you.
It's just, it will help you to change your mindset and help you to think differently and help you to say the word no, and realizing it's not a bad word. It's not a self-preservation word. It is I need time to myself, and um, these are my boundaries. And you set boundaries with everybody else, even your husband, your boyfriends. He's not gonna do that to me and get away with it. You do that to your boyfriend or your husband or whoever. The employer, it comes the same way. It's a relationship. These are the things that I will or will not do. These are the things that I will not agree to. And if they have a problem with that, with some things you have to compromise on. But other things, if it's a hard no for you, then that's probably not the job for you. It's probably not, and don't settle. I promise you. Settling is a quick way to burn out. And that's my opinion. I don't know what Glenda has to say about it, but I know settling is a quick way of burnout, because you become frustrated and you become angry quicker, because this is not what I signed up for. I remember saying that the first time I settled. This is not what I signed up for. And it only got worse, because it's that one thing and you let it slide. And then another thing and you let it slide. And then it just piles up, and you're mad and you don't want to go to work.
When you settle, you decrease your value.
Yes. See, that's why she's here. That's exactly that's what I was referring to.
You decrease your value. It's like putting yourself on the sale rack, saying, okay, well, you know what? This is what I wanted, but I'm probably not worth that anyway, so I'll just take this. Love yourself enough to wait for the best, to get the best, to seek the best, because you deserve the best. And don't tell yourself that you don't, because you do. So don't settle. Don't settle ever. Not for a job, not for a husband, not for anything. Because the good stuff is worth waiting for.
Hey, say it again for the people in the back. I promise you, it is worth it. It is worth it. It is worth it. I promise you. And and don't be anxious, because anxiety, that anxiousness will have you making decisions that you really, it's close enough. And I need, and you get anxious, and it doesn't, and you're like, okay, are they going to call me? Are they going to just, people have lives. And I realized that working as an NCS, when people have babies and kids, life gets chaotic. And if they meant to call you at a certain time and the child threw up or the baby started crying or the shoe went flying out the window or whatever the case may be patient. Wait. It's coming. Don't settle.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my last words on that subject. I think. I get so passionate about things, and it's just like,
I know
okay,
you
what else
do.
do they need
I know you do.
to know? But thank you, Miss Glenda, for
My pleasure.
thank you so much. We have been on here for an hour and 30 minutes. Okay, it's time to go. This is just a good subject.
Yeah,
Um,
we do that, don't we?
all the time. It's just some good subject, and it's
Yeah.
like, you know, I thirst for knowledge, and I just keep wanting to just grasp it and grab it all in and just eat it all up at one time. So, but yeah,
This was a good one. Yeah.
it was. It was. Before we go, I have a couple of
Okay.
announcements. Ask the Nanny will be in Houston with the Nanny Collaborative. Emily Kate Rowland has invited me to join her and Jada Pickett and Stephanie from Nanny Tees. We'll all be in Houston on the 13th for a nanny meetup. And on July the 19th through the 22nd, I will ask the Nanny will be in DC with AdCan, which is the Association of DC Area Nannies. I got it right that time. Yes. So we'll be there. We'll have a Saturday spa day, and we're going to have a Sunday social and a Monday night live roundtable. So I have the events. Check out the Ask the Nanny events page. All three of those are out there. And on the 28th, Dallas, wrong D. Dallas area nannies and birth workers and lactation lactation
Consultant.
counselors. Yes, consultants, counselors, educators, doulas, postpartum doulas, NCSs, anyone who touches that family, chiropractors. We're having a meetup on the 28th of July. So for the next 3 weekends, Aston is going to be out there.
Right.
So
That's
join
wonderful.
us
I'm so happy for you.
wherever you are, if you're in DC, if you're in Houston, if you're in Dallas, please come and join us. We welcome you, and we always have fun. We always have conversations. I always learn something new. We're always meeting new people. It's good networking. As Glenda just told you, network, and get outside of your network. That's why, if you're a nanny, get to know a doula, get to know a postpartum doula, because once their job ends, it's when yours begin. And if they know you and you're looking for a job, they can just slide you right on into that position. It's good to know. Okay, Emily, I hope to see you there on the 28th too. Okay, but it's good to know people outside of just the nanny world. Get to know the whole community.
Mm-hmm.
Step outside of your little narrow lane and get to know all the people that are around, that are centered around. You may be the core because you're going to be there the longest. The nanny is usually there the longest. But the NCS, the doula, the lactation specialist, all of those, if you know someone, I substituted for a doula 2 weeks ago. Knew someone who was looking for a nanny job. Mom asked me, did I know any nannies? I knew someone who was looking for a job. I suggested her, and guess what? She got hired full time. It pays to network and know people, because I'm an
Absolutely.
NCS. I worked for a postpartum doula and found a nanny. All three of us connected at a meetup. Network, people. Network. I'm telling you, it works. And that's why I started having these meetups and these Sunday socials so that we can, okay, I will try to get to Charlotte, North Carolina is on my list. So I will try to get there. It's on my list. But thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Miss Glenda, for joining us and giving us so many little golden nuggets. Oh, I love the nuggets. I love it. Planting seeds, golden nuggets, whatever you want to call it. Use the information and use it wisely. And I'm done.
Okay. Mwah. Good night.
Good night, everyone.